I wasn't going to show you guys this part because I wanted to have this already pre-done, but it's trying to make a fool out of me now and making me wonder about how I did this. So normally when I had these pieced and then I just slapped it on there, didn't try very hard to match it up. I just wanted to sew it, and I set my sewing machine for a very long stitch so it's easy to rip out. And what I wanted to show you guys was how after I sew it in place and I see, oh, this doesn't match here, everything's a little skewed, like a little bit, you know, like maybe 1/8 of an inch or less than 1/8 of an inch the wrong way this way, then I was thinking if I had that little bit of extra fabric that because I cut out like 2 threads bigger all the way around, I thought, well, then I can show you that because I cut a little extra fabric, I'd be able to scooch this whichever way it needed to scooch to match it up. And so normally what I would do is I would take my really long stitches and tear them out, and they tear out really easily when you're doing it like at 7 stitches per inch. And then I have all those holes left, and that helps me see where the stitch is going to be. And then I would very carefully pin it, find a part that would match and pin it, and then use some Wonder Clips to help. I would only usually pin it in one place, and then that would get me my alignment, and then I would just use Wonder Clips to hold it the rest of the way, because I think that the more pins that I put in, it tends to skew it a little bit more. But this made a fool out of me because the alignment going this way is perfect, and I wasn't expecting that. It is, like, remember the first video I showed you how, oh, it doesn't quite match up, but when you pull it apart, it matches up? This is kind of like the opposite of that. This doesn't quite match up, but if you could swoosh it together, it would match up. So I maybe need to play around a little and either add a tiny bit less when I'm adding some extra, or maybe, and I can't tell you because I'm not sure, I'll have to practice some more, maybe I should only put the extra on some of the sides and not the side that I'm actually going to be sewing that seam. I'm not sure. I'll have to play with that. But usually when I manage to get something this close, I'm like, oh, I don't really want to tear it apart. It's so close. What I want to try to do, I'm still going to do this with a pretty long stitch, but not quite as long. And this is an old Singer 301. The stitch length is not very precise. I'm still using a long stitch, but I'm going to do this at about 10 stitches per inch. So it's still going to be pretty easy to tear out. And I'm just going to, I don't know if I can get to see. I have my stitch in the ditch foot on, so you can kind of see maybe that I'm aiming just to make it just like a thread shorter, you know, so that when I'm making my seam allowance just a tiny bit bigger by sewing on the block side of the seam allowance instead of like on the seam allowance side of the seam allowance. Oh, I talk well, don't I? Okay, so I'm just going to try a quick, and I don't know if this will work, but we'll see. But I do this sometimes when it's so close and I don't really want to tear a stitch out again, and I think it might be enough to make it work. This is also pretty hard to do with this camera in the between. That wasn't my best sewing job, but let's